everybody, it's your boy Yamantau back with another episode of the Roleplay National Spotlight. Today I have a special guest. Everyone knows him as Steve, but on Heiress, he is the rising star known as Suavidic. Steve, would you like to introduce yourself to the good folks?
Hey everybody, it's me, Steve. Just coming here to answer a few questions, have a good time, maybe a few laughs here and there.
So, Steve, how long have you been on Heiress now?
Oof, a little over a year. Just a little bit over a year, I think. Joined last year, I think in either late November, early December.
Okay, and how did you come to that setting? What drew you to?
Well, I was kind of getting, I wanted to move on from the SR setting because it wasn't quite hitting what I needed anymore. And I saw what people were doing here, and I saw the stories being told on Heiress, so I decided that it'd be best for me to move over. And, I haven't ever looked back since. I thought it was a great decision on my part.
See, I like that answer. That's a good answer. What inspired your nation? What are its cultural and political influences?
Well, I took a combination of three empires that I really found interest in studying because I'm a history major, and I tried to get I do general European history for my major, most of my studies, but I've also looked into East Asian recently, so I kind of combined the general culture and names and such things of the Roman Empire with a hint of Japanese history, and then also some German Imperial, like just light sprinkling in there when I needed some other stuff to just kind of put in there. I also use the American constitutional system because I'm studying to be a constitutional lawyer, so I felt like that was a good thing to use for my basis of my law, considering I knew enough about it. So
you also have a very unique religious setup within your nation called the Blood Cult.
Yeah.
I'd really like to touch on that a little bit. Tell us about that.
So, it actually comes out of what was the life cult in what was the Epiphanes or whatever Mad Jack decided to name it now, because that country changes names every week, it feels like. And so I decided that it'd be best for me to because I had my people come from there, and so I decided that they had the life cult, and I figured coming to a new land, religion would be different. And lo and behold, I decided to come up with the blood cult or the sanguine cult because I figured people coming to a new land would have harsher conditions because there's nothing pre-built there. So we kind of worked at it coming from a religion that legionaries made to be something that this group of what was Umbrials and would become Suavidic would follow because they had a much harsher life than they get back in the old country. Aspects of it are stuff like, the old days had stuff like ritual sacrifices, other kind of there'd be dancing involving knives, and certain cuts would be made on people in order to show religious significance. A lot of tattoos, brandings are a thing. Yeah, it was kind of just a really intense, but it also had rather hedonistic things. Like there'd be groups of people, lots of drinking, that whole thing. It combined kind of the decadence of the ancient world with some of its more dark side.
It's a very Roman mythology-esque kind of religion.
Yeah,
mixed with a lot of other kind of stuff. I like that.
I also used some stuff from Tolkien and some stuff from ancient Norse mythology also, just because I also had interest in that. Well, also Tolkien had a big influence from ancient Norse stuff, but we do our thing here.
we appreciate that. So in your year or thereabouts in Heiress, you've written quite a few RPs. Which one has been your favorite to write so far?
My favorite to write so far, the Imperial Court one, because it allows for me to kind of take my leader, Augustus, and instead of having him be this person who is this one-dimensional character who, is the divine ruler of the Imperium, who blah 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 blah, all that fluff and muff, whatever. And just kind of show that he's a young man who still enjoys the stuff that young men do. You know, meeting girls, drinking, hanging out with his buddies, but he still, when comes time, will do what he needs to do in order to rule.
So you've mentioned Augustus here. Do you have any specific inspirations for the character of Augustus?
It depends, because when it comes to stuff like the Imperial Court, I have used that as a way for me to vent in my own way about stuff that's been going on in my life by kind of turning it into something much larger. So in that regard, some of his personality traits are like me. But on the other hand, he's also someone who would have had a much higher level of education, all that. So I kind of have also looked into, I took obviously the name from Augustus Caesar. I call him the lawmaker, like Augustus Caesar was, or whatever is Octavian or whatever you want to call him. But then I also looked at the fact, I also took a lot of the things I see as my own weaknesses and put in a person, my own vices in life. And I know it's not good of a self-insert, but it allows for me to write about what's been bothering me and make the character more believable, because I will write about the problems that I have. I'll write about the issues that I see in myself. Like, he's a hothead. He sometimes will blow off in things and do things he'd rather enjoy doing. So I've tried
it's like a very cathartic release at times.
Yeah, I've used it as a release, so I can look at myself and from a third lens.
What attracted you to this RP specifically? I know we touched on this very briefly earlier in the introduction, but I'm just wondering if you'd like to go a little more in depth about what attracted you to the Heiress roleplay platform.
Well, mostly it was the people. It was MJ, Yalk, you, and Pry mostly, because I would be in VC back when I was just about a little SR guy, and you guys welcomed me onto the platform, and you helped me out with learning stuff about what's happening, and you've overall just been really nice to me in the process. So I figured it couldn't be that bad.
Well, in my personal opinion, you've done a fantastic job with everything that you've done in Heiress so far.
Thank you.
So kind of in the same vein there, who, if anyone, do you look up to in the RP community? It doesn't just have to be this setting, but any setting.
Well, I mean, so you and I have had a lot of good RPs together. You and I have read a lot of good stuff together. So that's one thing I do look at and I value and I treasure. But Yalk and Pry and MJ, also people I really look up to as writers and creators. But even outside this, I read a lot of fantasy back in the day. Obviously, I've read a whole bunch of Tolkien. I've wasted my life reading the Silmarillion and the Lord of the Rings trilogy, and then the Hobbit trilogy. Not the trilogy. I got stuck with the movies there. The Hobbit book. My bad. So, I've just spent a lot of my time reading fantasy, especially not a lot of fantasy, just that. And I've read those several times over. And then people who I see and who write good stuff in RP, like MJ, Yalk, Pry, Pax. One person, even when I was on SR, I thought Pax did a fantastic job with whatever he did. Also Vapia, he's also been somebody who I've been able to look at and see grow with me, so I really love that too.
Yeah, that's really nice to hear. And so you've talked about your influences from Lord of the Rings, from Tolkien. I'd also really like to touch on the fact that you are TNP's probably most prolific Star Wars fanatic. As
yeah, that's fair to say.
Because one of your other nicknames in the community is Emperor Palpatine.
Yeah.
So how much of the Star Wars universe do you try and factor into your writing?
Well, I made the Heiress version of Star Wars a thing, Stella Conflictu. So I have that in there with my wonderful director Garganum Lucanum, the man who eats food court Panda Express all the time. Hold on a second. Then also, Star Wars stuff. I really haven't put anything in Heiress besides making the movies because I haven't seen the way to do it. But like with stuff like Aeneas, whenever I get to that, I looked at a lot of the old Sith Empire stuff to put in there. I know it's not canon anymore, but I still appreciate it.
So you have also refounded the Aurorian Economic Alliance, or
Yes.
the Aurorian Economic Union, which has become a fairly important part of Aurorian culture since the reshaping of the continent after many of its founding members either left for other endeavors or were removed for various reasons. Tell me a little bit about the Aurorian Economic Union.
So it served as a way for the Imperium to kind of make Auroria a kind of like a wall of people coming together in order to not allow for outside influences to really dominate the continent. It allows the economies of Auroria to be tied together and allows the imperial economy to kind of bedrock the other ones that would be on Auroria in order to prevent massive economic collapses. And it allows for free trade and some kind of mutual defense pact. It also allowed for a peace treaty to finally be signed between the Aphirans and the Imperium, which was overdue and needed.
Very much so, in my humble Aphiran opinion.
In your giant monster heart.
Yeah. So if we're going to mention the Aphirans, would you say that the relationship has not always been fantastic historically?
No, I'd say that's very fair. The relationships have been rocky at best historically. I say that's very, very fair. It happens when you have disagreements between cultures that end up in wholesale violence.
You can say genocide on the radio.
The Imperial Ministry of Truth denies any allegations of genocide.
See, there's something else I'd like to touch on. With the Imperium, there is a multitude of ministries. About how many ministries do you estimate that you have?
Well, the Ministry of Truth isn't actually a thing, but there is a large bureaucracy with it, being an empire that has been around for since the 500s BC. There's probably well upwards of 200 some ministries in there.
Good Lord.
Yeah, there's a Ministry of Fish and Agriculture, the Ministry of Fishing Seasons, because the Ministry of Fish and Agriculture got too over bloated, so they needed to make a new one in order to streamline things. All that whole thing, so that when the bureaucracy in a certain area got too large, it would just split off and form its whole new ministry that would report to somebody else, who would report to somebody else, who would report to somebody else.
So you have laid a really fantastic foundation for the Suavidic. What are your future plans, if you'd like to discuss that, for your nation?
Well, the future plans I have for it right now. Sorry, I just drank some water, went to the wrong pipe. So, Jesus. So the future plans I have are, we are continuing to push ourselves onto the international stage. We want to kind of put ourselves out there to really kind of show our muscle, because being the strongest economy in Auroria, I'll make that claim right here. We kind of wanted to open up to more markets and really be able to push our influence out around the world, because we see people like Goyanis, Rixia, even places that are on Craviter that aren't as big, or push themselves out as much. We see them as being able to have all this influence. And why shouldn't we be able to have influence overseas where it matters?
That's a great point. You've also mentioned Goyanis and Yalkan. There has been an incident with the Imperium and Yalkan where Goyanis got involved. Can you expand on that a little bit for me?
Okay. The Imperium came in because of the current crisis in Yamantau, and we needed a place to be able to build a port so we can refuel and restock ships on the way to go help out in Yamantau. So, in order to do that, we looked at a prime location and we saw Yalkan, a place that was in massive amounts of debt, not to the Imperium, but other places. And we wanted to try and rectify the situation for all parties involved. So we thought we'd give what sounded like us to them a great deal. We thought we'd give them a considerable amount of money, complete control over the port once the war in Yamantau was over, and the resources to build the port in order to get both sides to get some kind of agreement that they would appreciate and value. And then the Predicians got involved. And then St. Tonge got involved. And then Goyanis got involved. And, that was the one that really kind of pushed it over the edge because of the cultural impact Yalkan and Goyanis have together, despite massive Yalkan populations in the Imperium. So we're trying to work through that right now. And currently we are trying to keep the Syrixians out.
Who isn't trying to keep Rajesh away from?
We have a special spray. It's called Rajesh away.
That's fantastic. So we have a quick audience question here from Gap, also known as Aiden, I believe, in Heiress. Who is currently in the Suavidic mindset the biggest threat to world peace?
Well, considering we don't see ourselves as it, obviously, we'd say probably either the Goyanians or the Predicians for starting this whole coalition. The Predicians for starting it, the Goyanians for being the muscle. If anybody was gonna,
sorry, go ahead.
If anybody was gonna spark a conflict at this point, we see it as the Predicians or the Goyanians' fault because we were just trying to be helpful to a place that has immigrated to us a whole lot.
Okay, and another audience question from our lovely radio companion Vivanco. Would the Imperium like some Vivancola?
I don't know what Vivancola is, but you know what? Sure.
It's a soft drink manufactured in Vivanco.
Yeah, sure. It can't be worse than the Kosh stuff that Tim tries to push on me.
Another question from Vivanco. What is your nation on META, Metarian Economic Treaty Alliance?
Well, since we're in Yamantau trying to set up a government in Yamantau, I suppose we'll have to form some opinion on it right now, but as it stands at the current moment, we really don't have a whole lot of thought on it, besides it's starting to get a little annoying with the Predicians of St. Tonge and other factors getting involved in the war in Yamantau. We would have liked to have this conflict over quickly, but the situation keeps spiraling. M?
Can't hear you. You're lighting up, but we can't hear you, unfortunately. All right.
Just give him a second.
Hello? Sorry, I kind of cut out there. That was a technical issue on mine. Okay, we can probably edit that out later.
Yeah.
Anyways, does the Imperium drive on the left or the right side of the
Right side, because we're not animals.
Oh, we have another question from British Bayonet, also known as Alstom, Eurostima, and Crinslow. How does the Imperium see the accomplishment of its long-term goals?
The long-term goals in Auroran would be to solidify our control, or not control, our predominant stance, and have the alliance and have the continent come together as one unified force to be able to act in accordance with its continent's interests. It would be that it would be to in order to prevent any major source of conflict from ever coming to the continent and continue to be peace and stability on the continent. We kind of want to lock it down and, peace and prosperity to the whole thing.
Okay.
As Anakin Skywalker would say, I have brought peace, stability, peace, justice, and stability to my new empire. I probably got that wrong. I most definitely got that wrong, but whatever. I tried.
Shame on you, sir.
I'm not always up to date on the exact quotes, but I know what they're saying. I get the gist.
So another one from Vivanco. What's the oldest bone found in the Imperium?
Ooh. I don't... I want to... That's something I've never even thought about, actually. I haven't thought about prehistoric life in the Imperium. We're up north. Actually, continents drift, though, so let's just say it's some kind of large predatory dinosaur. If dinosaurs even existed on Heiress. Or what would be the akin...
I believe they did. I'm not quite sure, so don't quote me on it. What was the most early civilization living in the terrain of the Imperium?
Okay, here we go. Em and I are gonna have... So Em's gonna have to help me with names here because those are names I don't remember and can't pronounce. So the Imperium landed ashore in the 500s BC. We maintained connection with our homeland and kind of acted as a colony for a while. In that time, we met what was the natives, what would become the Aphirans. At the time they were... Em, help me right now.
Oh crap! I've forgotten what they're called right now. I'm sorry, I wasn't prepared for that question.
Nobody expected it. It's like the Spanish Inquisition.
Ka'awami. They were called the Ka'awami.
So we found them, and we, conflict started happening. The Imperium and them had a disagreement about something. It escalated with a legate getting killed by a chieftain for some kind of insult that he did, and neither side knew what happened 100%. So fighting ensued, and the Imperium pushed them out. They wiped them out. All of them.
Almost all of them.
Close.
So another question from Gap here. What is the current stance on the events in West Vasa and the parties involved?
We don't have all the information, but the general from Iden who is doing these things needs to be reprimanded and brought to justice. Just like any person who breaks imperial discipline will eventually be brought to justice, as we have shown with those people, with the traitors who did those actions in Dudrieka. But that man needs to be brought to justice, and if Iden won't do it, perhaps we will have to.
Okay, so we've actually got the most important question here of the entire interview from Vivanco: pants or togas?
Oh, so it depends. Togas are a traditional thing that's worn during religious ceremonies and other such things. Pants and regular clothes, for the most part, are worn most days.
Okay, and the follow-up for that same question, what is the most popular brand of clothing?
Oh God, this is stuff I haven't world built yet. Vivanco is making me think right here.
That's what Vivanco does. He's very good at what he does.
We'd probably be using some brand from St. Tonge or someplace that's known for having some kind of fashion. Because, I haven't thought of anything yet, so I don't have any answer for this. I'm trying to some answer racking through my head right now. I'll have to think of that, Vivanco. That's going to be my future world building. The actual modern day street culture of the Imperium.
So another question from BB. Outside the Imperium, where is the Emperor's favorite place to go?
Well, he actually owns a home in St. Tonge. So his vacation home in St. Tonge is actually a favorite of his to go to. Him and his girlfriend and any friends he decides to bring with.
I see. Oh, this is a fantastic question from Pax. What is the Imperium's opinion on the Food Security Organization? Because
the FSO is an evil organization. It's attacking the culture and the very foundation of the Imperium.
Does the Imperium not import a lot of food from Prytania?
It does. But they have committed the most egregious sin. Our deep dish pizza, the Suavidic pizza, has no longer considered pizza by the FSO. That is a bedrock of our culture.
Another question from Vivanco. Did the Imperium have pirates? If so, who was the most legendary?
That's very interesting because Yalk and I were working on having a pirate from Yalkan or Foos, I can't remember which one, come into the Imperium and be converted into the Blood Cult along with his crew, and then that would become kind of our most legendary pirate because it would be someone who wasn't originally from there who adopted our culture somewhat. Yo ho.
Yo ho ho and a bottle of rum. Whatever the hell we're calling it these days. So while we're waiting for some more audience questions, if you could, which other roleplay setting would you like to try out?
Ooh. I'm in all the ones I really feel like I want to be involved.
Did I cut out again?
No, I heard you.
Oh, sorry.
I heard you. I think I'm in all of the settings I really want to be involved in.
Okay. That's fair.
Because I had my time on SR.
Didn't we all?
I am on Aeneas. I enjoyed that. I'm on Imperial Galactica, but I don't do nearly enough with that because I had an idea of what I wanted, then I lost all want to do that. Pegasia, no. Asherton, no. Acheron, I meant, no. Just not interested.
Oh, we have a couple more decent audience questions here. So another one from Vivanco. How much marble was used in the Imperium for buildings and statues?
Hundreds of tons. I'm actually going to world build a statue that's going to be built around the time just before the fascist wars. That's kind of our version of the Statue of Liberty. Because I've been trying to have populations come to the Imperium during that time period because we had a relatively liberal government. And we wanted to brain drain other places. That involved us taking on some not so pleasant people from certain countries in order to help with the Imperium, as Fred and I were talking about this morning, and it was actually a pretty interesting idea. But yeah, we just try to encourage. Lots of The Imperial Palace is actually built out of mostly marble too.
So did the Imperium have some form of Carthage?
No. Unfortunately, didn't have somebody who really there was an empire on Auroran in order that I could beat up on, or I had big conflicts with. I would really like there to have been one. Really, really do. But nobody's come on there who really has been in that position.
Another
Would have been really nice.
Another question from Gap. And I'm going to quote directly from Gap here. As resident harem man, I must ask what happened to yours, because if I remember correctly, you had one. Gap would like to know what happened to your harem.
So the Imperium, as you know, has a very hedonistic religion. But that doesn't mean that we're above courtship. Any person could have multiple spouses. Well, the religious connotation was any man could have multiple spouses. The spouses, though, doesn't specify whether it's men or women, because the Imperium doesn't use the modern idea of sexual orientation. Anybody basically can sleep with anybody. No pry against it. Unless you're the man and you're the one who's the bottom. It uses a very old Greek and Roman style of sexuality, where it's all based on, for men at least, it's all based on perceived masculinity. So the harem, sorry, that was just a tangent that I've been world building on. The harem got abolished, not abolished. Emperors decide whether they want to keep or get rid of it. Keep or get rid of their harem, and Augustus decided to get rid of it because, despite having all these women that were wives and people who he would sleep with, he found somebody who actually loved and didn't want to continue the courtship with these people because it was wasting both his and their time. So ultimately, the harem is a legal institution. So is the idea of a court eunuch, but those also got abolished. They're not actually cut anymore. It's just some old things that have never been abolished that are part of the court. The imperial court, which still holds considerable influence over the imperator, who owns politically.
Yeah, I think this is a good segue into another one of Vivanco's questions here. How did the ancient Imperium manage its society, and who were considered citizens?
Okay, so in the ancient Imperium, there was much more class distinctions. There was the imperator, there was the legate, there was the patricians, who would include senators, ministers, and stuff, and there were the plebeians. The plebeians were the citizens, but they could not hold office. They could only hold one office, which was the position of tribune of the plebs. The tribune of the plebs had the ability to veto everything, so did the imperator. And then the patricians would run the Senate. The Senate would decide who was military leaders. The Senate or the imperator would decide. The Senate would vote on somebody. The imperator would either say yes or no, and that would happen. Or the imperator would just say he's leading on. He isn't the person they chose. Citizenship was limited to men, but it was not limited to any particular race or religion. It was only men in the Imperium. Well, for a long time, it was only men in the Imperium who held land. Then it went to any male born in the Imperium who was a patrician, or not a patrician, who was a patrician or a plebeian. Then eventually in the late 1800s, it became all men born in the Imperium, despite if they hold land or not, and if they're just a person born in the Imperium. And then in the early 1910s, women's suffrage became a thing. But the ancient imperial society was run on a heavy militaristic and religious level. Considering the wars we had to fight against the Ephirans, then there was conflicts with the North, or the tribes and kingdoms that would become the North over the seas. So we had to keep people in line militarily, and to do that, we mostly used religion. The blood cult called for a certain amount of honor to be able to pass into the afterlife. You would gain honor as if you were a woman by having sons who would serve in the legion. You would gain honor as a man by fighting in the legion. and doing a good job while you're in there.
Okay. So, again, segueing from that, another pair of fantastic questions from our resident Spaniard. What was the late medieval Imperium like, and when would the modern age come to?
So the late medieval Imperium actually lasted a long time because of the no contact that Auroran had with the rest of Heiress. So we didn't have wonderful inventions like gunpowder for a while. So what happened for the Imperium, there was no feudal stage. There was never lords, ladies, and stuff like that. What happened was there'd be waning power to the Imperator and his to the waning and gaining power of the Imperator, the Senate, and the regional governors. Regional governors that sometimes would gain power, but they were elected positions given out by the Senate and the Imperator. So they would have to give lip service to the Senate and the Imperator. But ultimately, it stayed under the imperial system, so there was no real feudal time. It was more of just did the Imperator have as much impact in your area of life as he did the generation before. And then the modern era came late. So this is where the Japanese history comes in for the Imperium. We were contacted by the Syrixians in the late 1500s, where gunpowder and remembering the other parts of the world existed. Well, not remembering, just being able to contact them came. So there would be stuff as in, like, the imperial ministries had notes of the homeland and that we come from the West originally. But it kind of, everyday citizens thought that was just myth. You know, it was a myth. It was a saying that's where the land of the gods is, and the blood god sent us here in order to fulfill the honor of man. And then once the Syrixians came, we kind of learned that no, there is empires of people to the west, and they're bringing fantastic inventions, gunpowder, sailing ships that don't need oars and can go into deep water. And the Syrixians would open a port, much like the Dutch did with the Japanese back in the 1600s. I can't remember off the top of my head. I think that's right. But then eventually, in the 1800s, the Andrenians would come, in like the 1820s, 30s, with some kind of steamships, and it would be like Matthew Commodore Perry coming and opening up Japan, but instead they're opening up the Imperium. And that's when trade would start coming back in. And stuff as in more advanced weaponry. We would hire out foreign military leaders to teach us how to be a modern military. And that's where stuff like and that's where stuff as in the German military would come in. That era, that like late Prussian, right before the German Empire formed, that's kind of the imperial military coming out of the ancient ways and into a more modern one. I actually chose them because those empires like that tried to be the Roman Empire, and Imperial Germany tried to lay claim to that title. So I figured, you know what? They're one that I might be able to get away with, and they claim to be German enough, so why not? And so, yeah, the modern era came in the late 1800s with the Imperial Constitution, and then the abolishment of the ranks of plebeian and patrician, and the opening of the Senate to plebs, and the opening of ministries to plebs. And then finally, when one of the imperators got married to a pleb, which was a big thing at the time, but it's still a pariah, and that's part of the controversy in my imperial court, the daily life of the imperator.
All right. So we've got, it looks like just a couple more questions here. Again, from Vivanco. Who is the best known contemporary author in the...
Well, author depends what you're talking about. Author is in strictly books. It'd be Marcus Antonius Verassus. Writes a lot of modern day fiction in the Imperium. But if you're going to talk people who write the best screenplays, it'd be Gorgonum. the founder and writer of Stella Conflictu, the Imperium's best movie series.
So, and a question from our friend Bork here, also known as Walpin Island and Faltsu. How and when did you discover TNPRP?
You know, this is actually a pretty funny story. Not funny, it's just kind of interesting. I don't know why I said funny. But so I was actually going into my freshman year of college. I just graduated high school. And I was talking with this one person who would be going to my university with me. And she was like, yeah, for one of my classes, we had to do this thing. It was on this website called Nation States. I was like, sounds interesting. So I came in, and I think I originally joined TNP, but didn't get involved with role play because I was like, what's the point? I'm not really here for anything besides. I mean, I named my country the Imperium of Steve. I wasn't really taking it too seriously. And then as I was going through high school, I noticed that there was people writing on the forums, not on the forums, on the message board, on the RMB. So I would make a post here and there saying something about how great the Emperor of the Imperium was. And then eventually I saw that there was a map. And I was bored in college between classes. And I decided one day that I was going to submit my claim. And from then on, it kind of grew from there. So it was almost an accident that I found it.
Well, it's a happy accident. We'll chalk that up to a Bob Ross incident.
There's no such thing as mistakes, only happy little accidents.
Absolutely. So, I believe that is pretty well all the audience questions we have.
Anybody got
Steve,
any more? Go ahead and shoot them at me if you got any ones left.
Let's get a last handful of questions from the audience here, and we'll get those in.
You didn't ask any questions about the war in Yamantau there, M.
Well, I'm trying to keep any self-promotion out of this because this is about you.
It's not self-promotion. It's my work too.
All right, let's flap gums about the war in Yamantau here.
Let me tell you about the oppressive government in Yamantau.
Oh my lord!
By the righteous. This Yamantau government, this communist repressive government, had been repressing the people of Yamantau for years. And, eventually, the Imperium, in a quest to regain some old artifacts from Andren, had some rogue elements commit some horrible things in Budrieka. Those people were dealt with, and they were tried for their crimes. But the common premier of Yamantau decided they had to say something to the Imperium, and a diplomatic situation arose in which both sides handled it very poorly. And lo and behold, there was a shelling of an Imperial town, and that was responded with what was supposed to be a quick bombing run in Yamantau, but it ended up doing a lot more damage than that. And didn't go well. But then, so we landed in Yamantau, and we've been slowly pushing through the marshes, and a horrible terrain. But they're in for some surprises, because the Aetherians have recently joined the Imperium as the Aetherian Autonomous Zone. And so the mercenaries that Yamantau hired to fight for them might be switching sides.
So for anyone unaware, Aethera is my secondary nation on Heiress, which has been my passion project for the last little while here.
And he's doing a great job with it.
Thank you. I appreciate that. But yes, the Yamantau Imperium War has not gone fantastic for either side, really. If we're both being quite honest.
We may have the advantage of material, but they have horrible terrain. So we've been able to enjoy air superiority and being able to cause, I think, more casualties at this point, just due to the weapons technology being in our favor and air superiority being in our favor. But things are going to start bogging down around the great city of Segdiev.
And also, for anyone unaware, the city of Sagdiev is indeed an in-joke between Steve and I about our shared love of the Borat movies.
Whoa.
Wah, wah, wee, wah, my friend.
Yeah, but
So,
you can expect a total victory of the Imperium. And that's not just because the propaganda ministry says so.
very well.
Oh, I thought you were going to respond to that. I was hoping to get a little gone.
Nah, I'll leave my responses for the forum.
Oh, look at this big guy here.
Oh, Vivanco has one last question before we wrap up here.
Oh.
The best reporter in the Imperium. Who is it?
Oh my god. I love how the Borat stuff comes up and he starts it would be let's see. Brutus Lavinius oh god. Always have to last names are always interesting. Brutus Lavinius Tarassus. He is the #1 reporter in all of Imperium. He has done such things as interview. He's interviewed the Imperator. He's interviewed members of the Senate, and there's actually going to be a movie coming out of the Imperium with involving a reporter from Yamantau after the war ends. It's going to be fantastic, isn't it, Em?
And for the record, this Borat parody film in Heiress is a cooperative effort between Steve and I.
It's going to be somebody from Yamantau going to either Goyanus or the Imperium to see how great nations of Heiress live.
That is correct. Well, I think we've about reached our time here. I'd really like to thank you for coming on with us today, Steve. I know we had delayed this quite a few times, and I'm really thankful for your patience in the matter. It's been a fantastic time chatting with you here.
I know you've been doing a lot of work, and things haven't been easy for you. So I just want to make this as easy as possible, because, this is just supposed to be something people have fun. I don't take it too seriously. I hope nobody takes it seriously. It's supposed to be a good time.
It's always a good time when you're around, Steve.
Always fantastic time when you're around, Em.
Well, guys, gals, and non-binary pals, that's it for the RP Spotlight for us today. I'd like to thank our special guest, Steve, and all his contributions. I'd also like to thank Vivanco from the Ministry of Radio for being here to record and edit and answer all or ask questions.
And if I may say one more thing before we wrap up. Ave Imperium, Ave Imperator.
Oh, boy. Have a good night, everybody.
Have a good one, guys.